do for the Twitter page. Even though I'm not going to get any viewers on Twitter, I'm still going to do it on Twitter. For the replay, if you're on the replay, put up a comment. I'm going to try to give you as much useful information as I can give you without any user engagement because I'm on YouTube and Twitter, but no one's going to come through. So this is Brother Dank, Medicine Owl, David Lucido, signing on, station 00000000000, ground 2.0, it's still 9/11. I got proliferated WMD of the sort of integrated directed energy weapon systems and information weapons. Voice to skull, cyber torture, neuro weapons, Havana syndrome, gang stalking, proliferated weapon of mass destruction, proliferated weapons of mass destruction. It's a WMD. It's a weapons of mass destruction. I got a QR code up here. It says Vets Hear Voices. That's a look at the problem from the 1990s where 65% of combat veterans were hearing voices. They told their VA doctor, I'm trained to recognize a threat, sir. This is a neuroweapons assault on my physical security, and I need military interventions. And their VA doctor looks them in the face, say, soldier, you've seen too much shit. You just need to eat this poison and let me take all your rights away and shove you into a psych ward for the rest of your life where you'll continue to be cyber tortured. That's what you need, soldier. And that's what happens to these soldiers for their whole goddamn lives. You wonder why we lose 22 a day? Probably because a 65% majority of these motherfuckers are hearing voices that tell them to check the fuck out. Get the fuck out of here, soldier. That's what they're hearing on their voice to skull. Vets hear voices, if anybody gives that shit. But that's not the only QR code I have for you. How about Vets Hear Voices and Lynn Bear, who also hears voices? He's a medical doctor. He got his Havana syndrome diagnosed by Dr. Hoffer, who diagnosed the diplomats. So he's got a medically diagnosed, legit case of Havana syndrome. He brings it to FBI. They're like, it doesn't look like a crime in our jurisdiction, microwave weapons assaults. We can't help you. No one helps Lynn Bear. Meanwhile, he points out that physicians, like he's an MD, so he managed to find a psychiatrist who doesn't think he's a delusional schizophrenic because he's got medical evidence he's a microwave assault victim. So his psychiatrist says you've got Havana syndrome, but every other psychiatrist in the world, like our 90% or 65% of veterans who go to the VA with hearing voices, all the other psychiatrists in the world say, hey, buddy, you're a schizophrenic, eat this poison. So Lynn Bear says, he writes on the inadequacy of the physician's mindset in the era of neuroweapons at this QR code right here, telling everybody your psychiatrist is a useless, Nazi, useful idiot. Intellectually lazy moron, doing much harm, doing harm only doing harm, helping nothing whatsoever, only doing harm. Called an information weapon, called a neuro weapon. Whenever they run the line that you're crazy, that's the information weapon, and that you need to be poisoned, that's a neuro weapon. And it doesn't stop the ongoing neuro weapons assaults voice to skull in the psych ward either. So let's see, this problem's been going on at least since 2009. In the mainstream news, they've been aware of it at least since 2009, according to this QR code. At least since 2009. We saw the veterans were hearing voices in the 1990s. By 2009, we figured out it's a weapon in mainstream Portland, Oregon news. 2009, it's a weapon. So we've known it's a weapon since 2009 in mainstream news. Meanwhile, last year, babies still have Havana syndrome. Where is our military? Well, it's too classified. It's too mysterious to ever figure out. So we're just going to let CIA look into it for 5 years, determine that Russia says it's not them and China says it's not them. So it doesn't look like a foreign threat. And that's all we have to say about it. Let's kick it on over to some other agency for another 5 years, keep it classified to shit, and we'll never get to the bottom of it. It's called classified. It's an information weapon. It's called information denial. It's an information weapon. Meanwhile, we got an insider threat. CIA knows about it. It is the CIA. So fuck the CIA until they get out here in the daylight and help us handle this controlled deploy of a massive information weapons package, because babies have Havana until we handle it. That's kind of how it's gamified. Gee, thanks, CIA. Babies have fucking Havana syndrome, and you got our military ate up on voice to skull and information weapons, too fucked up to handle it. Gee, thanks, CIA. Hey, good morning. You also have an Air Force captain telling you the same shit I'm telling you right now. Air Force captain telling you the same shit, no-touch torture, gang stalking, workplace mobbing, and he's calling for an end to that torture, and he's also calling for us to tear down the jails. This is published by the United Nations. Jail is also torture. Guess what? It doesn't meet anyone's needs, which is why people commit crimes, because they don't have their needs met. This Air Force captain is telling you the same shit I'm telling you. It doesn't meet anyone's needs to chain them to a wall and piss on them and abuse them. It doesn't meet anybody's needs. It doesn't prevent that person from committing any crimes. It doesn't make anyone feel better for that to happen. So this Air Force captain and myself are calling for us to evacuate every jail and blow that shit the fuck up and leave a little bit left, just leave just enough left to have a museum left over about the torture chamber at jail. Fuck jail. And fuck all this other torture as well, is what this United States Air Force captain has to say about it. Meanwhile, I'll leave you with this QR code. It's my intelligence package showing I've done threat reporting. It goes nowhere except to the psych ward. And the UN says it's a real problem. I've got like corroborating evidence, disclosure that I'm personally attached to out of Washington State Patrol, UN publications, FBI guys. I've got Army assessments of the relevant Russian capabilities, all at this QR code right here. You'll download a PDF. And that's it. This was a mission failed broadcast. I had 0 viewers. So if you come across on the replay, please put a comment on the replay so we can know this was not all for naught. SOS, proliferated weapons of mass destruction, direct energy weapon systems, information weapons. Help, 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 help. SOS. May God be with you and the United